Hi Year 11s, in this video I'm going to show you how to make your kids' cape. Okay, first of all, you're going to need the following items. 2 pieces of fabric. I've chosen a nice leopard piece here, clearly. Leopard is my favourite. Then I've got a black piece. These have already been cut out to pretty much the right size that you need. You're also going to need one of the pattern cardboard pieces to cut around, some pins, a small piece of Velcro, the hook side and also the fairy kind of side. That will be the closure of the cape at the front for the child for safety, and so it can easily come on and off. When it comes time for tracing, you'll need either a pen or a texter or some tailor's chalk. Because I'm using dark coloured fabrics, I'm going to use a white tailor's chalk. Then when it comes time for the sewing machine, we're going to need a bobbin case and thread in a matching colour as well, and of course scissors. So now's a good time to pause and collect all of the different bits and pieces that you need. Just keep in mind the cardboard cutouts, there is enough for 1 between 2 or 3. So just work sort of in pairs and threes and share them around. Okay, time to get started. So step 2. Put aside anything I don't need for now. And the first thing that I need to do with my fabric is fold it in half. So I'm folding it in half long ways so that it kind of creates a long and skinny piece. And then along the fold here, you'll see on the pattern that there's an arrow. That's telling you to place this edge right along the fold. Okay, so I'm going to place that as close to the edge of the fold as possible. And all I need to do from here is simply trace around the cardboard cutout. Just make sure to hold it in place. Okay, then I'm going to repeat the same thing with my black fabric. Black fabric, fold it in half, and placing once again the fold line on my folded edge of fabric, holding it secure and tracing around the edge. Okay, I now need to cut out these 2 shapes, so grabbing the scissors and cutting around on the line. If you're worried about your fabric moving, the 2 layers slipping apart, you can put a couple of pins. I'm fairly confident, so I'm happy just to cut them straight out. Really important is at this point I'm not cutting along this folded edge. No cutting, okay, because this is going to open out to create one part of the cape. All right, cool. So I now have my 2 pieces of cape upside down, at least you can see. My next step is to lay them on top of each other, good sides together. So you can see on this leopard type print, one side is a lot more dull, so this underside. Right, so I'm going to call this the good side, the bit that I want on the outside of the cape. I'm going to place that facing down onto the plain black. It doesn't really matter which side I choose for the black fabric because it's the same either way. Oop, just a bit there. Okay, so you now want to line it up, and this is where you will need your pins. You're going to pin all the way around the edge to keep it nice and secure so that we can sew the 2 pieces together. So essentially our cape is inside out then we're going to flip it through so you don't see any of the sewing. So I'm going to pin all the way around, but I am going to leave about a 10 to 15 centimetre gap on one of the straight seams on the side here. And that is going to allow us to actually flip it through. If we sew all the way around, we won't have a hole so that we can actually turn it through the right way. Okay, so just leaving a gap. Pins. I like to line things up and pin it as I go, leaving about 2-3 centimetres in between each pin, just so you're not there all day pinning. Okay, I've pinned almost all the way around, except I haven't pinned from my gap here. Just to remind myself, I'm going to do 2 pins going the opposite way to all the rest of the pins. That will show me when I set up my sewing machine, this is where you start sewing, so all the way around, and then this is where to stop. Otherwise, it's so easy to get caught up in your sewing and forget to actually leave a gap. Now to see, I've got 2 pins going acrossways there to remind me to start and stop sewing. Okay, it's time now to set up your sewing machine and sew all the way around the edge apart from the gap. If you've forgotten how to set up and sew on your sewing machine, that's fine. I'm about to show you or refresh your memory on how exactly to set it up. Okay, we are at the sewing machine. Now, to thread your machine, you need to do the following. Your top thread, sitting it on top of the spool pin here, comes across, use this hand, around behind this thread guide at the top here. All right, and then it comes down towards you, down towards the front, underneath the other thread guide, always going from right to left. Okay, it's opposite to reading, always right to left. Up and over. Now, we've got here the uptake lever, and I'm moving that with the hand wheel on the side here. You want to get it so that it's on the corner, what I call the corner here of the sewing machine. That makes it easier to thread. So you go again up and over, down, from right to left. We now just need to tuck it above the needle behind the very small little hook, okay, and then trim the thread and go from front to back through the needle. Okay, and pull that out to the side. Now, if you haven't sewn before or you're really not very confident, I suggest you sit with someone who is a bit more confident or has some more experience, because that would have been a whole lot of humbo jumbo if you haven't done that before. All right, the next step is the bobbin. So we need the bobbin with matching thread again. Going into the bobbin case, making sure that it's spinning clockwise. When I gently just pull the wheel there, it is. And then we go up and back towards the pointy sticking up bit of the bobbin case, so that the thread now is coming out of the hole at the top. Okay, now flip it over, holding onto the handle, open up the bobbin case, clicking it in, making sure that this arrow, this pointy bit, is pointing upwards. Okay, that's clicked in. It's not going to move around, so I'm happy with that. Step 3 is the step that lots of people forget. So making sure that you hold on to the top thread, all right, the one that started up here, with your left hand and with your right hand using the hand wheel. Okay, so the needle goes all the way down, winding this towards you, and all the way up. Jiggle with your left hand this thread, and now 2 threads should have come through. Okay, should have 2 threads here. Perfect. Just using the little slot in the presser foot to tuck your threads under and pushing them behind, closing this over. I'm just going to trim off, I've got lots of excess thread there. Okay, now ready to sew the cape. All right, I'm going to find the gap where I need to start and stop sewing, and I found it. Here it is, my 2 pins that are going in this direction rather than along the edge. So I'm simply going to tuck under my fabric, and I'm going to use the edge of the fabric as a guide for my sewing and have the edge of the presser foot lined up with the edge of my fabric here. So using the presser foot lever to lower it down. Now I'm going to sew 3 stitches forward. Oh, forgot to plug in the pedal. That would help. In goes the pedal, making sure your cord goes around the back for safety. Plug it in, turn it on. That would also help. Okay, now we are ready to sew. Getting your pedal in a comfy position like you would when you're driving a car. Turning the machine on the side over here. Lights on, and it is on. And I'm going to do 3 stitches forward. Oh, probably should have my settings also. Up here, we want to make sure that red is lined up with red. That this lever is as far as it will go on straight and zigzag. Correct, it is. However, what I've done wrong is I haven't fixed the width. Right, my sewing machine is set up to do zigzag, so you want to make sure that your needle is straight up and down, but this lever on top, that is on. Someone was trying to do a buttonhole. Okay. That is on 0 because we don't want it to go wide at all. We want a straight stitch. Okay. So 0, we don't want to do a buttonhole, so 0 for buttonhole. Length, 2.5 is the standard. Hopefully that rings a bell if you've done sewing before. Remember to wind this if you are changing the length, and then simply push it up to reverse. So let's try again. 3 forward, and then holding up the reverse, 3 back. Okay, now I just sew all the way around the outside of my cape. Be really careful around the curves to get nice and close to the end without missing any of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that now. You don't need to see all of that, and I'll show you when I'm done. Okay, I've finished sewing all the way around. You can probably see on the edge here, there's stitching about 0.5 centimetre from the edge, and I've just left the gap from here to here with my sewing. And I'm now going to use that gap to flip it all through the right way, making sure to be careful and getting all of the fabric through for the neck part of the cape. Okay, time to flip. My cape is now starting to come together, so you can see it here. All right, and it will simply go around back of the child. We'll see it'll be a bit longer on them. How cool. And then it will close over here. All right, what we need to do to hold it all in place now that we have flipped it through is, of course, sew up the hole that we used to flip it all through. We're going to do that by creating or sewing a top stitch all the way around the edge, and that will keep it all in place so that it doesn't get all skew if it gets washed, and make it look a little bit more professional as well. So what you do need to do for that, and I suggest taking this over to the iron now and ironing all of the edges, making sure that there's no fabric sort of hiding on the inside and that it's all pushed out and even either side as much as possible. Okay, so that's your next step. I'm going to take this to the iron and then come back and do my top stitch. Okay, I'm back from the iron and everything has been ironed so it's sitting nice and crisp. I'm ready to sew around the edge and do a top stitch layer. The only bit that I've pinned is where I did have the gap. You can see I've got a couple of red pins there just to make sure that those little bits of fabric don't flip out as I'm sewing. If you're more comfortable, you're welcome to pin all the way around if you would like to. But if you're confident and you feel like after ironing it's going to stay in place, then that's fine. Once again, I'm going to line up the edge of my fabric with the edge of the presser foot. So it's going to create a stitch 0.5 centimetres or 5 millimetres in from the edge all the way around. You don't have to worry about any gaps this time. You sew the entire border of the cape. Okay, here we go. Just going to start on a nice clear sort of flat edge, tucking my fabric under. And once again, like I said, the edge of my presser foot here is lined up with the edge of my fabric, and I use the lever to lower the presser foot so that's in line there. I know it's a little bit tricky to see. If you do want more clarification at this point, please ask. I'm more than happy to help, or ask one of your classmates. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go 3 stitches forward, 3 in reverse, and then continue all the way around until I get back to where I started. So I'm going to do that. You don't need to see all of my sewing. That would get very boring, and I'll show you when I'm done. All right, so I've finished sewing all the way around the edge of the cape. So you can see here I've done a top stitch, 0.5 from the edge all the way around. Just gives it more of a professional finish, and I make sure there's no holes. So we are now ready to do the closure of our cape. It's starting to come together nicely. Now at this point you can decide which bit you want to be on the outside. So if you would like black with the leopard underneath, or vice versa, now's the time to decide because we're going to do the closure. I am all about the leopard today, so I'm going to have leopard on the outside and then black on the inside. So what I need to do first is get the Velcro pieces. So you have one that feels a lot rougher. It's got little hook kind of things, and then a fairy kind of one. Now one of them goes on the top side, so the actual leopard side. And the way that these Velcros work, they are kind of like a bib, I guess. This leopard layer will overlap the other one. So therefore we need to make sure we do the Velcro, the other part of the Velcro on the underside. So one on the top side, one on the underside. Okay. It is a bit tricky because you can't necessarily pin these on because they're thick. But I'm going to try and put a pin just to hold them in place, and then I'm going to use the sewing machine to sew around in a small rectangle around the edge of the Velcro. I'm just attempting to pin this on. Yeah, okay, so I could get a pin through it. It was a little bit tricky. So I've got it sitting not too close to the top here where there would be lots of fabric and lots of layers. I've got it lined up sort of in a position where it looks fairly neat, and then I'm going to do the same but on the underside of this one. Getting there. This pin's a bit tricky. Chose a dodgy pin. Let's try again. Okay, now you can see I've got the pin on the underside. And before you sew it, just do a quick test run to make sure that they're going to sit and Velcro nicely together. I can see that's working. So perfect. I'm ready to sew these. To sew, you just want to do a straight stitch again from this corner up, top, around, and back to the start. If you don't feel like that's strong enough, you can do a couple of layers, but try and keep it to just sort of a square, because keep in mind you will be able to see the stitching on the back there, and the same for this one. Keep it in a rectangle sort of shape. Do lots of back tacking and make it nice and strong. By back tacking, I mean reversing. Okay, so I'm going to sew that now and show you when I'm done. Yay, cape is just about finished. So I've finished the Velcro. You can see it attaches nicely there. I've sewn around the edges of both of those, and you can see the stitching on the other side. And the last step now for your cape is to add any decorations or any embellishments. Maybe you'd like to add a superhero logo. If you have time, you might want to add a star or anything like that. If it's big enough, I suggest attaching it on using the sewing machine. If it's smaller, then use hand sewing to decorate your cape. One other tip is consider the fabric you choose to decorate your cape. Right, because if it's felt and it doesn't fray around the edges, or a different fabric that you find that doesn't fray, you can just simply sew and attach it on. If it's got fraying sort of edges, you need to think about how can I attach this and seal the edges so that it's not going to fray and threads aren't going to come off when it gets washed. All right, so I'd like you to decorate your cape, personalize it, add a few things to it. I'm going to leave it here for now and leave you to get creative for the last bit. I hope that helped, and good luck cape making.